All right, everybody. Welcome to the Great American Little Town podcast. Today is Wednesday, May the 21st. I believe 21st. Today's 21st. All right. I got to check with yeah. The days just blur together for me. I don't even know. As you get older, you just kind of, you know, the memory gets a little fuzzy. The days turn into whatever. Not like you.
Memory ought to be real fuzzy.
You're going to be retired soon. The days will just totally. Monday will be a Saturday, and Sunday will be a Tuesday. It won't even matter anymore.
The only bad part about all that, not soon enough.
Not soon enough. By the way, the soon to be retired person speaking right now, my illustrious co-host,
I'm back.
Mr. Dan Denier. Yeah.
You missed me, didn't you? I know you did. It's okay. You can admit it.
Yeah, the show just wasn't. I'll admit the show wasn't the same without you. It's kind of like Johnny Carson without Ed McMahon.
Right.
For all you old people, if you remember that. And tonight we have a returning guest, Mr. Shawn Thomas, a local journalist.
Yeah, I'll cheer for you.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. The Peanut Gallery. Okay. Yeah, your fans and yeah. All right. So, anyways, we got a great show tonight. We're gonna talk about some local stuff going on in town here, some local events, and I appreciate all you people that gave me some info that I asked for today on some stuff coming up. And then we're just gonna kind of just use a freestyle tonight. We don't have any specific topic. We decided we just Shawn and I kind of have these random, and actually, and Dan and I too. We just kind of talk sometimes about these random things. We go, we should talk about that on the podcast. So we may or may kind of get off in some crazy stuff that may not pertain exactly to golf, but it will all be something that I think people would find interesting. So hopefully, we'll know if the viewership is down. Anyway, so first a little housekeeping from our legal team. So the Great American Little Town podcast is an independently operated, not for profit yet. Hopefully,
you've got a month before that has to be for profit. Just so you know.
All right.
June 24th is my last work day. June 25th we have to be for profit.
All right.
Get busy.
All right. Any views expressed? Any view statements by myself or Dan, especially Dan? Anything he expresses is definitely should not be considered credible whatsoever.
Totally wrong.
Should be considered.
I've been told.
Can I finish, please? Okay. Drink your tea. So the podcast is neither sponsored or approved by the City of Galt as an official news source. The views and discussions of this podcast are solely that of the host and guests, and should be considered for entertainment only, not as credible news sources. Although, if I say it, it's at least 50% credible. It's as credible as you want it to be. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if Shawn says it, so if Shawn says something, it's 100% credible because he is a journalist / reporter / editor, and his job to have the facts and nothing but the facts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Dragnet.
not to put you on the spot or nothing, but all right. So first, I want to give a shout out to some people. Our friend Barry, who was on the show last time, our friend Barry from Ireland. He's now back in Ireland. So Barry, when you watch the show, if you're watching it now, I'm not sure the time changed there, but anyways, thank you again for being on the show. It's very entertaining, and I think you did a great job filling in for Dan.
When the next time he comes, though, I'm going to be on the show, and it's going to be a drinking show.
Oh, 100%.
The whole show.
So
we'll just do an hour
if you didn't see the last show, you got to watch it. Barry's from Ireland. We had some cool. We talked about all kinds of Irish stuff. It was very fun. But he's going to bring us this Irish. It's like supposed to be the best Irish whiskey from where he's at. It's called Bush, I think, or something. Anyway, he emailed me and said he's already got it on the way. He's ordered it. So I don't know if he's going to send it to us or if he's going to. I don't know.
Well, when he comes back,
we're going to take shots on the show.
When he comes back in, I want him here. Yeah, I want to have.
Yeah.
We're going to have a podcast of cocktails. With Barry.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so you know, that's not really tea that Dan's drinking. That's like bourbon in a stunt cup. Yeah. Right.
Be under the table by the end of it.
So since we're in the overseas shout outs, I want to give a shout out to my friend Matt Wilson in Scotland, in the Isle of Lewis, way in the hell up in the no man's land. Isle of Lewis, very beautiful there. You know, he's invited me if I ever make my way that way that I should come by and see him. It's like a dream of mine at this point to ever go there, but I just had this fascination about Scotland. I totally want to go. But he lives in this beautiful place that I hope to see someday. He was kayaking today out in this like harbor thing nearby his house. Looks pretty cool. So anyways, hello, Matt. You and your family.
Can I give an overseas shout out?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd like to give a shout out to William and Kate They
The
live
print-
in England.
in England?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my buddy William. We call him Bill.
Yeah.
You might know him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
Whatever.
Is that how it is? You hang with the high social class now,
Hey, I try.
right? Call you Prince
I
Dan.
mean, I hang out with the mayor at Galt, so
Yeah, well, that's no big deal.
you should see how many people I work with that when I tell them, I got podcasts. Oh, you're gonna be on with the mayor because they were the guys at the wedding and stuff because they were so thrilled they got to hang out with the mayor of Galt.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
they don't get out much.
at least there's a couple people that think that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Them and 3-year-olds.
Right. Right. I have a little kid fan club. When I live with little kids, it's actually the best. Being in this position of meeting young kids is actually the funnest because it's super like, oh my God, I mean, that's big. Adults, they don't care a lot. They can just,
Right.
oh, you're the mayor. I got something to tell you. Like I had a lady call me today. I had a lady message me today. This is a true story. She goes, I want to know who's the acting mayor right now. Who is it? And she asked me a question about something. And I responded to her question, gave her the information she needed, but I didn't say it. She goes, well, and my other part of my question is, who's the acting mayor? And I go, well, actually, I am right now. And she goes, oh, okay. And that was it. I don't know why she asked me that. It's like she wanted to I don't know, but she didn't. Once I told her that, there was no well, I want to tell you something. There was nothing. So I don't know. But anyways, all right, where we at? Okay. So anyways, I want to get another shout out to my friend Isaac. So we're he lives in I think it's Gilbert, Arizona. I think you're in Gilbert, unless you've moved. But he's we grew up together, long time, old friends from back in the day. We used to be BMX friends. We used to. I was like a big BMX guy back in the day, and so he's still out there doing that stuff. He's got I think he's got a show of his own or something that he does, and if he wants to chat in, I can share that with him. But the Dan, you need to move closer to your mic when you're
I'm
speaking.
trying. I'm trying to talk louder.
There you go. Yeah,
if you turn my volume up, you probably
you're
can
so
hear me.
soft spoken, Dan.
I try to talk. I've been trying to talk louder all episodes. I've been trying.
See how close my mic is, and see how. All right, you get it.
Just don't be so
Anyways, my
loud.
buddy Isaac from Gilbert, Arizona. So we used to be BMX buddies, and I have a photo that we're going to share on the screen in just a moment. So it's going to take a minute to pop it up. When that photo goes live, Isaac's going to know what's up, and I'm going to reference that photo. So we'll circle back to that as soon as it gets up. Anyways, so special events. I had a bunch of people sending me some stuff that's going on in town very soon. So yeah, I don't see the photo, by the way. All right. While we're looking for that. So we have a bunch of cool events coming up. So we have movie nights that are coming up starting on June the 13th. And it's going to be at Veterans Field. So they put up a movie screen and the city hosts this, and there's people out there. So we're going to have the Galt Junior Warriors are going to be up serving, operating the concession stand, I think, selling popcorn and treats and stuff. So go out there, support the Galt Junior Warriors. It's a fundraiser for them. But the movie nights are going to be June 13th, July 11th, and then there's one in August and one in September. So check out the city's social media for those. It's actually a really cool event.
That first one on the 13th. Are they going to show Friday the 13th?
No, actually, it's going to be Paddington
Jaws.
Bear. Something about Paddington Bear, and then the one after that is you can't see it because I don't have my glasses on. And then the one in August is Cars, and then I think in September it's Lilo and Stitch. That's your favorite movie, so you'll be sure.
Some of those I've never seen.
You've seen Lilo and Stitch, though. You told me that's your favorite.
I've never seen Lilo.
No?
No.
Okay.
Cars. I like Cars.
So another shout out to Ink House Social. So Ink House Social is a new tattoo parlor that opened on C Street. So Reina Saldivar is the owner of that with her family. They did a spectacular job. Great family, all very talented artists, and they are doing a grand opening. It's actually June the 6th at 6 p.m. So definitely swing by and check out that place. They've done a ton of work in there. It's very
Next door to the Generation
It's right. Yeah, it's
Barbershop.
right next to Next Generation Barbershop. Shout out to Mark Jackson at Next Generation Barbershop. It's right next door to that, right on C Street, across from the antique store.
Yeah, yep.
So go check out Reina and her new place. It's beautiful. We wish them the best of luck in business and Galt. They're going to do fabulous because she's phenomenal. The Grange Hall has an event every second and fourth Thursday of the month from 4 to 7. It's a music event. It says come check out, play along, sing, join in the music. They have a potluck. I'm not really sure exactly what all that is, but
I think it's just a jamming session.
a jam session.
Yeah, like bring your own
Really?
instruments and
That's actually
yeah,
pretty
I think
cool.
I'm
It
pretty sure
says
that's what
We
it
Be
is.
Jammin'. That's what
Yeah,
it's called.
I'm
So
pretty sure that's what it is.
that's pretty cool,
You know,
actually.
you play guitar, bring guitar. If you play, flute, bring a flute. I
Yeah.
don't know.
You can bring your
accordion,
flute, Dan.
Whatever. Yeah. No,
Your jug.
I'm not musically talented.
Dan plays the Dan plays the recorder.
Yeah, I couldn't even.
Remember
play
when you were a
that.
kid? Yeah,
Yeah, I
all the,
couldn't even
all
play
the
that.
kids had the recorder. It's like, what is that instrument?
Couldn't even play that.
I had to play it.
Did
I-
you? You
Yeah.
did?
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
have no musical talent.
Fourth grade, I think. Or third. I don't know. I don't remember. Third grade, I think.
All right. And then a huge event. Want to mention this again? I mentioned this on the last show. Is the Galt Stronger Together Community Dinner. This is a huge event in support of the tragedy that happened to the Liberty Ranch athletic boosters. For those of you who don't know, they had about 6 figures of money embezzled from them, and so it's really hurt the athletics program all across the board. So they're doing a huge event spearheaded by many organizations. There's a lot of people involved in this. I can't even begin to tell you who all's involved, but it's going to be at the Littleton Center at and I'm looking for the date here because again I don't have my glasses on. Why do I? Oh, it's Saturday. I'm sorry. Saturday, June the 14th. Saturday, June 14th. There are going to be a lot of people showing up. I'll be there. They're going to do a live auction. They're going to do a raffle. They're going to do it's a pasta dinner. All the money, 100% of the money goes back to the boosters. So every nickel is going to go directly to them. There'll be lots of the kids and the athletes will be out there helping bus tables and serve food, I'm sure. But we're going to share a QR code at some point during the show too. For you can QR and buy tickets, but you can look all over. This thing's all over social media on Facebook. So just look out for it. I'll share it again on my personal page. But please come out. It's $20 for adults, $10 for kids, and kids under 5 and under are free. So very important event. So come check that out. The last thing I want to mention is I want to get a shout out to a new animal rescue that we have in town. It's called Heart of Galt Rescue. And thank you, Brittany Weldon, for mentioning this. You can check them out at heartofgaltrescue@gmail.com. The website is heartofgaltrescue.com. Very simple. So heartofgaltrescue.com. They're really filling a huge void. There's a big problem with, I mean, we have a lot of people helping out with that kind of stuff, but we have a huge animal problem in Galt, especially with like kittens and cats and so we thank you. This is a huge deal. My family, my wife, and my daughters, especially Kaylin off screen, she's fostered more kittens than I can remember, and finding them homes. But they help find homes and help get kittens and other animals into foster families and find them permanent homes eventually. So we just want to mention Brittany and her new rescue. So we wish you guys success and thank you for what you guys are doing for the community. We'll mention you again coming up. Let's see. Then we have one more thing I wanted to mention. We have a Galt alumni. Her name is Isabel Cepeda. She is a former wrestler and coach for Galt High School, and she actually finished her career at Delta College because she's a 2-time All-American wrestler. And she's now
Wow.
going to continue going to a second school for wrestling, but she's a Galt alumni and she's 2-time All-American. So shout out to Isabella
Nice.
Cepeda and her family if you happen to see this. Good luck with your career, and thanks for making Galt proud. So if anybody else has another event, if you're watching the show and you want to pipe in and throw it in the chat, I'll definitely mention it. Or you can email to greatamericanlittletown@gmail.com, and we'll be watching the email and we'll mention your event. So, or if it's anything notable, we'll just say that. So, all right. So we got the photo up. Is the photo up? Which one? The BMX photo? All right. So if you can see that BMX photo, that's me when I was like 14 years old. That's for you, Isaac, just to show you who had the best Miami hopper. That's what it was called. There was a trick called a Miami hopper, and that right there, it doesn't get any better than that right there. Doesn't get any better. Look at that.
Hey, look at that.
Yep. That was my Skyway BMX bike. That was over on 6th Street by the dental office.
I could do
Sure you can. Nice try,
that.
buddy.
I could do that today.
Um,
You might just want to have the ambulance ready when I'm
right.
done crying. But
Yeah. So, anyways, all right. So moving on. So I think the events. I don't know if there's anything. Is there anything substantial going on at town that I should mention? Like anything big? There's been a lot of discussion about trees. So for those of you who don't notice, we're planting a bunch more trees. We're actually planting more trees on the C Street project that's finished, but now we went back and we've actually added more trees. So you'll see more trees popping up at some of the medians and on the sides of the road. Not anything like that's going to like cause any problems. It's just there's some areas that we felt that needed a little more could use a tree. So I mean, who doesn't? You never have enough trees.
It helps.
Can
Yeah.
you still get free trees from SMUD? They used to have a program where you could get free shade trees from SMUD.
I think
I
they
wonder if you
still.
can still get
I think
those.
it's still- do you know if they do that?
I don't know if they still do it.
Hmm.
I've heard of
They
that
used
program,
to.
but I don't know if they still do it.
Yeah.
I saw them out there, I think.
We
Yesterday,
planted
maybe?
like 150 trees, I think, so far. I saw some on the Stockton Boulevard along that sound wall where like a Dareway and all that is. I saw some there. I saw some in the medians up over the interchanges at C Street and A Street. I saw some in the new planters. So they're systematically going around redoing all the medians and doing some of the landscaping. It's going to take a long time to finish, but they planted a lot of trees in efforts to, make the town greener. So
And is that city staff doing all the work to plant
Public
those?
Works
Yeah,
and Parks and
yeah.
Rec staff, I think. Public Works, I think more involved in it.
Yeah.
So,
Give them a shout out for the job.
yeah,
they're
it's
doing.
actually National Public Works Week this week. So
Yeah.
shout out to our workers at Galt Public Works. So, I want to mention something. I don't want to get into this thing, but here's the thing about as the mayor, I get a lot of complaints about things. Hey, what's going on with this? And people are on Facebook and they're always complaining about this and that. And a lot of people want questions, but there's a lot of people that have a bone to pick with something, right? I feel like the city employees, and I'm not talking about the higher staff, like the leadership. I'm talking about your employees, your blue collar, public works guys, parks and rec guys. When they see something like, oh, this flower bed looks terrible, or that park looks terrible, or why are they tearing up the street, or why can't they fix it, or why can't can you imagine being one of those workers and you just see on there people complaining about basically your job all the time? So I just hope that when people complain now, as leaders, I expect for people to come to me with problems, and our city manager and the higher level staff, it's their job to fix these problems, and we need to hear that stuff, and we need to be accountable to the people for things that need to be fixed. But I also want people to be aware that when you say stuff about city staff, like when you complain about something, that there's a person who's this their job, that's just a regular worker, and and that's their job, and they're just people like us. They got families at home, they're just regular people, and and it's like I wish that people would be more supportive. Like it's okay to complain, but I also wish that somebody would, you know what? That park over there looks really good. Whoever mowed that park, they did a good job. So thanks to whoever did that. They may not know who did it, but these workers will see that stuff and it makes them feel good. And I think they deserve to have a pat on the back for some of the work they do. I think everything needs to have some positive support along with some criticism. I mean, you have to have a balance.
Yeah, and if they went on strike for a month, imagine
Oh man,
people
Yeah,
would notice
not
then.
really.
Do you remember when the trash handlers in Sacramento went on strike?
When the what?
I think it was by trash handlers, the garbage
Oh, yeah, yeah.
employees. I mean, how quickly that had to get wrapped up. I mean, people notice when stuff like that just kind of goes the way of the dodo.
Oh yeah, for
It's
sure.
important. But I agree with what you're saying 100%. There needs to be, I mean, there's a level of criticism for everything, but if that's only what you're seeing, it probably grates on you a bit.
On the flip side of that, though, in a small town, sometimes I think, what, if all the people are complaining about is, like some weeds on a street, or, somebody speeding in my neighborhood, we need to do more speed control. That's a common one, right? We get a lot of traffic complaints. Or can we do this better? But generally speaking, in the big picture of things that are really bad, I'm actually glad that most of the things that people are concerned about in this town are really like not like, hey, we got the 6th drive-by shooting on my street. When are we going to do something about that? I mean, I don't get those, right? Or, I mean, we do get some crime stuff, of course, but I think generally speaking, the stuff that I hear most about is really kind of small stuff, right? And it's important stuff to people for sure. But I'm just saying sometimes it makes me feel better that we're just dealing with that kind of level of stuff in Galt. And I think people really kind of step back and think, you know what, if that's really all the stuff we're dealing with in Galt compared to other cities, that's pretty good.
Good
So,
problems to have.
yeah.
In the grand scheme of things. I mean, Elk Grove
Absolutely.
just had 3 fatal crashes in a week.
Really?
Yeah, 4 dead.
Wow.
In the city?
Yeah.
Wow.
Over the course of 7 days. So I mean,
What was the circumstances around
they're
those?
still investigating them. One was believed, I think, alcohol was believed to be involved. Others speeding, frankly put, and that's when you're comparing, issues, right? I mean, traffic in Elk Grove is a pretty big issue. So,
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and honestly, sadly to say, it's going to be a bigger issue in Galt as we move forward. Just as Galt, into the future. It's going to be traffic's one of those things you just cannot. I mean, you can try to keep the roads as best you can and try to make the streets flow as best whatever, but the amount of cars is just not going to change.
Sure.
We're not going to just all of a sudden be like a metro like a San Francisco or a New York where everybody just decides to start taking. I mean, I think maybe at some point in the future you'll see more people, like we already see people riding a lot of electric scooters and things like that and electric whatever. So I mean, let's be honest. In the last 5 years, would you say there's been a significant uptick of the amount of people you've seen riding electric scooters and bikes and things like that?
I would say, yeah. I was in LA about 5 years ago. And that's when they introduced those those ride scooters and things like that. The Lime scooters, those are the ones that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
pay really quickly. And I think that introduced a lot of people to that as a potential mode of transportation. Um, there was a lot of issues with the onboarding with those things, people riding them in the wrong spots and
Yeah.
flying down the streets. But I think it did introduce people to that as a possibility of a mode of transportation. Those things move fast. I've only been on them a few times, but once you get going and you start to really learn how to use them, you can get around point A to point B pretty quickly.
But the uptick is because we've gotten lazier and nobody wants to pedal.
Right, I know. You're like, I bike to work every day, but I'm not in good shape. It's like,
Yeah,
it's
It's an
electric bike.
electric bike. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, me, like I
Hey,
mentioned earlier,
but-
growing up around bikes was my whole life revolved around my bicycle, and it was great.
The answer to the traffic problem, I heard about this the other day. They've got flying cars now.
Oh God.
Well, that's a whole nother
they
level
only
of
cost-
accident.
They only cost $250,000 each.
Oh,
It's okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
We open up the bank account.
So back to the bike topic and the electric scooter, just real quick. We obviously a few years ago we started seeing more bike lanes and things be put in Galt, and with the new C Street project, there's obviously bike lanes. And I've had some people that come to me and they say, what do we need those for? That's stupid. That's not, Galt. We don't need those in Galt, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, a lot of that was required by some of the improved the circumstances surrounding the grant money that we got had to have better pedestrian safety, which included better crosswalks, better modes of transportation, bike lanes, safer bike lanes, and all that. But I've had a lot of people that come to me and they love the bike lanes because they do ride their bikes, whatever. But I think what people need to be mindful of is those bike lanes are not just for what Galt is now. As I just mentioned, as we see more people using electric bikes and electric scooters, and those become more of a thing, and it's growing very rapidly. In 15 or 20 years from now, you might see just a massive amount of people using those and using those lanes. And that street it was built to last another 50 years because before we did any changes, it had been like 50 or 60 years before there was a change. So I think we're not thinking about Galt now. We need to be thinking about the future, and I think those lanes are going to serve a very big purpose moving forward. You got this look on your face like you don't care for them.
I hate them.
So do you ride a bike, Dan? Let me ask you a question, Dan. When's the last time you rode a bicycle?
I don't know.
When's
But
the last time?
When's the
I
next
don't
time
know
I'm
that-
gonna? When's the next time I'm gonna ride a bicycle?
What about
I don't know that
what
either.
about an electric bike or electric scooter?
Never ridden one.
Exactly. See, so
Yeah.
What about you, Shawn?
I used to actually ride my bike to work every day
Yeah?
when I was in LA. And,
So-
and that's in downtown LA. So having bike lanes was attractive to me. And the fact that, that was a big, big issue in LA, is that the fact that a lot of the streets didn't have protected bike lanes. And that was something that a lot of the bicyclists would request. But, as my mind changes into fatherhood, I think about, having a little one on a bike and having a protected lane versus an unprotected lane. And the idea of having a protected bike lane and just a place where he can ride his bike where it's not as dangerous, so
Yeah.
to speak, I'm in favor of it.
Well, I look at the bike lanes and I think people get caught up with that it's a bicycle lane because I really think they're going to be. My prediction is the future is going to hold. They're going to be well more widely used by electric scooters and electric bikes than they are traditional bicycles. So
yeah, probably.
I don't think we're going to see like all of a sudden Galt's going to have an uptick in bicycle people because we have bike lanes. But I think that we are seeing a massive uptick in the electric scooter stuff, especially with young kids. I see them all the time, and that is a direct use for those lanes.
It's not the lanes that I have the problem with. It's that hideous green color. Whatever engineer, some wizard.
I'm going to
somewhere
tell
in the
Barry that
States-
you have something against green.
I don't have a problem with green.
He didn't have anything against
I have a
green.
problem with that green. It's hideous.
Yeah. Well, there is a certain code that dictates the color of the green.
Right.
There's like 2 different color greens that you can use. Yeah, I learned all that.
And
when
we
did.
painted it all over the town.
Yeah. No, I know. I don't like the solid ones. I like the ones that are striped. They have a white line and there's like a green line next to the white, but it's not solid green. I'm not a fan of the solid green. I think it's a little over the top.
What I don't know, I'm surprised that you know, being a bicyclist guy, trickster guy, the pitcher, from your childhood, I'm surprised you're actually alive. They didn't have bike lanes back then.
You know what? It was like the Wild West when I grew up in Galt. We would just ride down the middle of the street, like which actually some kids do nowadays, but
Yeah.
we were kind of crazy. Like we just But Galt, you know what? But here's the thing. You know, Galt didn't have nearly the cars and the traffic that we have now. I mean, you could go down the middle of you could go to the four-way intersection up there where the Frosty used to be, and you could go 5 minutes without even a car coming to the stop sign. I mean, and at night, you remember this, at night, like 10, 11 o'clock at night, you drive all around town. The only person you'd pass was the police.
Mm.
I mean, there's nobody. So it's way different now for sure.
Does
Sadly, but
Galt city code? I know there's some cities that prohibit bikes on the sidewalk. They force them into.
yeah,
the streets.
technically, I think that is a thing. You're not supposed
Yeah.
to ride your bike on the sidewalk, but that's not something that the
That the
PD,
police
the
they
PD are
typically
actively-
don't.
no.
Yeah, they turn up.
It's
kind
kind of like
blind eye to it.
jaywalking. Like,
Right.
you know, how many people jaywalk and how many people are getting jaywalking tickets? It's
Right.
very rare, right? So it's there and it's enforceable. So I think if like PD saw some kid like, you know, hauling ass down the sidewalk and being reckless and like, you know, almost hitting pedestrians that were walking or whatever, then he could exercise that code and say, hey, you know, this was right on the side. So, but yeah,
Well, I think that's also, you know, a lot of those electric scooters, if you don't have that lane, they tend to ride them on the sidewalks and
Yeah.
zipping through. Those things move fast,
Yeah.
man, and they're zipping through pedestrians and things of that nature. So having a lane for that, I think, is kind of cool.
What's the law? Or I don't know if any of us know, but if a bike or a scooter is motorized,
Mhm.
whether
Yeah,
it's electric or gas,
I actually have that. I want to share that with you because I recently inquired with the captain, Galt PD, about what is our policy and are we kind of, because I feel like cities are kind of behind the times on what, because you see people going down this electric scooter and they're going like, you know, 35, 40 miles an hour. I'm like,
Super
is that,
fast.
and I mean, zipping through intersections, like that can't be say like
Well,
these are almost like automobiles,
A kid can't you can't ride a dirt bike in town unless it's licensed for the road.
but they make electric dirt bikes and I see kids riding those
Right.
and
So
they're
what's
zipping up and yeah.
It's still a motorized vehicle.
So basically, here's what I got from Captain Small. This is very good information. Thanks for bringing that up. So there are 3 classes of e-bikes.
That's what I'm here for.
There's class 1, class 2, class 3. So class 1 is a 20-mile-an-hour maximum. Class 2 is also 20, and then class 3 is a 28-mile-per-hour maximum. Now, I question that some of these things I've seen only go 28. I don't know if they're hacking them and making them go faster or whatever, but the age restriction is there's no age restriction except the class 3. So the ones that are supposed to have a 28-mile-per-hour maximum is supposed to be 16 years and older.
Hmm.
It's restricted to that. No registration required on any of that. The helmet law is basically under 18.
Have to have help.
Yeah, but the class 3, the 28 mile and over, it's required for all riders, even adults.
Well, that's what I was wondering because you know if you ride your motorcycle down the road, you have to have a helmet on.
Sure.
But that's what I was kind of wondering.
And when you say electric scooters, are you talking about the like closer to like a Vespa
So now, so let me clarify. So those are e-bikes.
e-bike?
Those are e-bikes. Okay, so let me talk
They're
about
electric
let me talk
ones.
about scooters now. Yes.
Okay.
Because they have gasoline bikes too, though. I mean, they've got the
Yeah,
ones
but
where
Yeah, but
they still got motors on them.
but this is mainly we're seeing a lot of yeah, I got the volume up almost maximum right now. Just make sure when you're talking in your
Oh.
mic. Oh, that was way loud.
Yeah, my bad.
No, when you're talking, just twist like this instead of turning like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Jeez.
all right. So back to the electric scooters. So these are treated differently than e-bikes. So the maximum speed is supposed to be 15 miles per hour. Okay. They're legal on streets with speed limits that are equal to or less than 25 miles an hour. So basically, you're not supposed to ride an electric scooter on any street that the speed limit is over 25 miles per hour.
Which would be Lincoln
Which
Way.
would be weird because I've seen people. Yeah.
That's Lincoln Way.
Yeah. So that's
Lincoln Way's
weird.
35 unless
See,
you're in the school
that's
zone.
that's strange to me. I don't doesn't seem right. A driver's license is required. That's weird.
Yeah, no, and the ones that you would rent, they need a license for
Really?
them. And
Really?
yeah, that was a big issue with the rentable ones
Hmm.
because kids were getting on them and they had to have parental approvals and things of that nature. If they were, it just got, there was no way to prove it.
No passengers allowed. No riding on sidewalks, and a helmet is required for people under 18. The one I question is the driver's license. Though, I mean, there's tons of kids that ride electric scooters all the time. It says you have to have a driver's license. That can't be legitimate. So, anyways,
How fast does a golf cart go?
I don't know, that's a whole nother subject. But when I inquired about this, it's because I'm seeing so many, and I was like, I've had people ask me, it's like, what is the policy with scooters? Because as the scooters get faster and we see more kids riding them, and they're basically just zipping around corners, and I see a lot of adults riding them, and they're going really fast. What is the policy around that? Like, what is Galt PD? Like, I think people need to
Well,
know, because they don't want to get stopped by
Sure.
PD, and then PD go, well, I'm going to cite you because XYZ, and they're go, well, I didn't know that. So I think there's going to be a policy discussion that we need to really kind of dive into this at the city level and figure out what is the policy. And when we figure that out, it needs to be shared so that everybody's aware.
Well, and
Right?
if they're electric, they're pretty silent. They're pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they're riding them on the sidewalks, and or you're walking down the sidewalk and some kids riding a scooter down the sidewalk coming at you, and you don't hear them, I mean, I can see some issues with some of that.
Yeah.
That happened to me once.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was walking down the street. It was Spring Street in LA, and a scooter just comes flying up behind me and dang near clipped my shoulder. Happens all the time, unfortunately.
I think it's just kind of the Wild West,
Mm.
and it's really, it's like where technology progresses so quickly and it becomes so popular that, municipal codes and vehicle codes and things are just kind of lagging behind the times with really dealing with how do we deal with that, right? So it'll be interesting, because some of that information came directly from Sergeant Steele, which is one of our motor officers. So he's supposed to put together a whole really in-depth thing and present it and send me an email. So I'll definitely share more of that in the future with our listeners. So one of the things I want to talk about tonight was, so you're a journalist, Shawn, and you and I always have these discussions about technology and where things are going with, especially we talk about Chat GPT and all that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I personally have never used, it sounds embarrassing, but I've never used Chat GPT. I know what it is and I have friends use it, but I've never personally used it. I know what it can do and all that. But as a journalist, the first thing I think of when I see the capability of Chat GPT as far as just writing, I mean, it can do all this other stuff, but as far as writing, I always think like, dude, are you guys going to be out of a job soon?
I think, well, it's funny, when you brought up the topic, this was well before, there was a big story that broke. I want to say it was in Chicago, where somebody used ChatGPT to create an article, and they didn't check it, and the AI completely created
Butchered it up.
created books that didn't exist. It was a summer reading list, and the books didn't exist. And he's been saying, "Hey, I've been using ChatGPT for a lot of my articles. I just feed it information; it spits out an article." But
Okay, but let's talk about that. But
Yeah.
let's be honest. Humans write articles and things all the time,
Yeah, and they're
especially
wrong.
news stories that are not
Yeah.
that are misinformation. I mean, that's a real buzzword right now, misinformation. But honestly, they're inaccurate, facts are wrong. It's common, because we're only human.
Yeah.
So let's be honest. So ChatGPT is really, it's making mistakes, but humans make mistakes too.
Sure.
I know people that use ChatGPT to basically write an article and then they go through and then they edit it.
Mhm.
But it saves a lot of time by having to whatever. So it's almost like a cheat, more or less,
yeah, I think
for lack of a better word.
like anything, it's a tool that the industry is going to have to decide whether or not it wants to accept it.
Oh, I don't think there's going to be a question about accepting it. I think that and AI in general, obviously, is in full like
Well, they're using it for other things. I think it's whether or not you use that, and how do you affix a byline to that at that point? Do you affix a byline? Does everything just become, by the LA Times or whatever publication that you're working with?
but it's all brought to you by ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's like, how does that, I think that's where the industry is going to have to figure it out, whether or not it wants to completely put its hands up and say, we're not touching this, or whether or not they want to use it to a certain extent. Do you want to use it do you cut out the copy editor? Do you feed every article into ChatGPT and then there's not a copy editor there anymore? I mean, at most publications, there's maybe about 4 stages before that article hits public,
Wow.
public. And from the reporter to the desk editor to the copy editor to the editor in chief, however
Wow.
that situation's created.
All that, and I still read articles sometimes on the
yeah.
internet with the word spelled wrong, and I'm like, the word's spelled wrong.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Looks
and
like Dan's got
I
something.
got something. I said I just pulled it up and I told it to write a critique of Galt, California, and it gives me this whole long thing, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says Galt, California is a small city in Sacramento County that often flies under the radar, with a population hovering around 26,000. It's primarily a residential and agricultural community. While its small town charm is part of its appeal, golf faces several challenges that shape its identity in both positive and problematic ways. And then it lists 3 strengths: community oriented feel,
Huh.
affordability, access to nature. And then it lists 3 weaknesses:
Okay.
limited economic development, public services and infrastructure, cultural and educational opportunities. I guess 4, growth versus identity conflict.
Interesting.
The overall assessment, I want to read that. Galt is a city with heart and heritage, but remains a modest, somewhat underdeveloped community. It it appeals to those seeking simplicity and small town Americana, but may frustrate those craving dynamism and opportunity. Its future hinges on how it balances growth with the preservation of its tight knit
Yeah.
ethos.
Well, it's
Now, literally, this whole thing just came up because I told it one sentence.
yeah. I know. That's what I'm
It's
saying. It's
amazing to me
mind-blowing. Well,
because it's pretty accurate too.
I had a friend write an article basically my wife and I's business, and he just had some basic information and it wrote a whole article. And I would swear to you that article was like in a magazine. It was so well written. It was mind blowing to me. I was like, I could not tell you if he hadn't told me that he did that with ChatGPT, I would have said a human wrote that. I mean, it was like that was my first experience with somebody showing what ChatGPT could do. This was a couple years ago, and I was just like, I was like, wait, what? Like, what? That's crazy. And right in that moment, you're just like, holy cow.
No, I mean, like I think a lot of different industries, when these tools pop up, I know a lot of journalists that are going through that existential crisis right now of what is this going to do to our industry? Are we going to completely automate ourselves out of a job effectively? Like you just pulled that prompt up. I want to
Yeah.
give you a prompt right now. Let's see what it pulls up. Put in, write me an inverted pyramid article.
Hang on, you're gonna have to spell part
My
of
bad,
that.
my bad.
Dude, that just went right over my head.
Yeah, inverted pyramid article in AP style about, I don't know, something in golf. Let's say a fundraiser in golf. Let's just say that. That's very basic.
All right. So while he does that,
yeah.
we continue
Let's see what pops up.
So on the same conversation, let's go above and beyond ChatGPT. So AI. So look, every time I read the news in the morning, and I read some very neutral news sources, like I don't like people spinning a story left or right either way. I hate that. I just want the news, right? Just give it to me. I'll make my own assessment. So, but every story, when it gets into science stuff, there's something about AI. I watched a documentary once where they said that they'll go to like these trade shows. Oh, it was a trade show where like military officials, like U.S. government officials, would go, and there's all these companies. Like back in the day, they would be like Boeing would be there, and Boeing's like, oh, we have this new whatever engine. We could, they're trying to land a contract with the U.S. government for like a jet fighter or whatever. And then there's maybe somebody that makes ballistic vests for the U.S. military, and they're trying to land a contract, right? So it's like a trade show trying to get government contracts. And they said every single thing at the trade show, every single thing is all something AI. All of it.
No,
It's truly the arms race of our generation.
Well, look at the drones they were using in the Russia-Ukraine war. All you ever hear about is the drone strike on this side, the drone strike on that side, and there's no more. I mean, there is, still battles.
So
but
we recently authorized Galt PD. We've had drones for a little while, but we recently authorized them to start using drones to respond to calls. Now, let me give you an example of a call. It would be whatever. Let's say we get a call of an abandoned vehicle. So, and officers are typed somewhere else. They'll literally fly a drone over to take a look to see what's going on. And then if they need to send an officer, they'll do that. So things like that where it doesn't really require, they're not going to send a drone to a domestic violence call or something like that, obviously.
the drone can get there faster.
Right. And so we want to use it to take the need off the officers, in those situations. But the drone thing, we've been using in the military in Afghanistan, Iraq, all kind of stuff. But the thing with the drone is, there's still a person flying it behind it. There's still the decision to kill or launch a missile or take something out. It's still made by a human being, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, and I don't want to sound like some Terminator movie, but the problem is I watch all these documentaries about AI and there's this big fear. Obviously, we all have seen it. There's this big fear about when AI gets so advanced where it no longer makes mistakes on fact, where it can write an article, where it is. We have given the AI program. Hang on, Dan, you can read that in a second.
This is amazing.
I don't want to read the whole. Read me part of it, but don't read the whole
No,
thing.
it's amazing how fast it pulled this thing up.
Yeah.
It's got a headline. It says who. It's got today's date.
Yeah.
Local golf fundraiser raises $15,000 for youth programs. It references Gulf Community Park. It references Gulf
Wow.
Youth Commission, Parks and Rec Department.
Yeah.
It's got a quote.
Yeah.
This turnout exceeded our expectations, said Melissa Carter, director of Gulf Parks and Rec. I don't know who Melissa
Yeah,
Carter
just a
is, but
made up name.
Yeah,
just
just
made
made it
up
up.
name. But I mean,
so
it's a whole article.
Yeah, reads like it, right?
Yeah.
So we when somebody comes out with technology, right?
Mhm.
It's meant to make things easier, right? Well, AI is that's the intention of AI, right? It's to make things tasks easier
Sure.
for us, right? But obviously, there's going to be some replacement of jobs and things too. But it's like, but we get to a point where, like if I came to you and go, hey, I have this new software. It's an AI based software, and let's say you have a factory and you build widgets, right?
Yeah,
Like, hey, Shawn, this new software will streamline and it'll analyze your entire workforce and the way you run your business, and it will tell you how to streamline and make you more productive and more lucrative and prosperous and all this stuff, and find your weaknesses. And you're like, oh, it sounds great.
Right.
Let's do that, right? Well, what's going to happen is they're going to come back and it's going to go, well, the real weakness, the real weak link is human beings, right? if you robotically, if you made your assembly line, whatever you made, and then if you don't have employees, then you don't have to worry about sick leave and medical insurance and people calling in sick to work and figure out how you cover a shift. And then heck, if you don't have employees, you don't even need an HR department. You can just get rid of all the HR people, and it's just, I mean, that's kind of where things kind of go with that, right? Because at the end of the day, and you can look at it from a safety perspective,
Mhm.
right? If the government says that we're going to put an AI program, if one day the United States says we're going to have an AI program that's going to keep us safe, right? Because everybody wants to be safer, right? Oh, it's going to protect us safe. In my opinion, the AI program is going to say the biggest threat to human beings is humans themselves.
Well, that's what
right? So we're going to take all the
that's
power
what
away
all
from you
sci-fi
guys
is.
because you guys can't be trusted with nuclear missiles. So the AI program, we're going to be in charge of the nuclear missiles. Let AI do it, and then we're talking about like Terminator situation where we
Sure.
have.
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
I think that's I don't know. People well above my pay grade get, paid to discuss that stuff. But to kind of opine about it, I guess that's a logical conclusion, right? If you build a program that's job is to effectively automate out weaknesses, and it deems that to be a true weakness, which yeah, the biggest threat to humans are humans. I mean, we're our biggest enemy effectively. Like it's not, you can't, what else would it be, right? Then yeah, why wouldn't it make that
Look
decision?
at the auto industry, right? Look where the auto industry was 100 years, or well, yeah, probably about 100 years ago now, since like Henry Ford started. But look where we've gone now, where you have entire assembly lines are very, very much a high percentage of our robotics. There are some humans involved, but by doing that, they've now minimized the company's cost of like labor unions and having to pay employees and all this kind of stuff, which is a big deal. It has been a big deal in the auto industry for years with unions and strikes and stuff, right? So the more automated they are, look at McDonald's, for example.
Oh, yeah.
They probably did it because minimum wage went up. So now they've assessed their business model and said we can be more efficient if we just kind of have less employees and we'll have people ordering with apps. And if you walk in, we'll have a kiosk. And they've minimized there's not as many employees working at McDonald's as there was 10 years ago.
I think the question becomes, like, I don't know if you've run up against this or, when you go into those stores and it feels so automated to the point where there is no human interaction.
I hate it personally,
it's a really jarring experience. And I think that's a discussion that people who are trying to take advantage of AI to put them into kind of everyday life may run up against, where you have some type of, slow down.
But look at in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, you have vacuums that will vacuum your floor and mop your floor and the Roombas, right? You don't have to vacuum anymore. They have lawnmowers now that you don't have to mow your lawn anymore. If there's most of the tractors, a lot of farmers in the Midwest, they everything is like you're still in the cab, but you line up to plant or you line up to harvest and you push a button and it's all GPS. It keeps you in straight lines. It's a whole thing, right? That Waymo, I saw a story the other day on Waymo out of San Francisco, those automated taxis. It's crazy what's
I still don't know if I'd step into one of those things. I've never been in one.
But I think when you look at different technologies, and you can look at things like when somebody invented the washing machine or the smartphone, right? I think if you look at every technology advance, some of them are very mundane, and somebody's going to say, there's always a good and a bad thing to a new piece of technology. The impact on society. I think some things it's like, well, there's very little bad. It's like the washing machine, for example. I don't really think of any negative thing about the washing machine. There was always like, oh yeah, the washing machine is great, wash your clothes. But the downfall of the washing machine is it what? You just don't have to wash your own clothes. And it doesn't make people stupid. If your washing machine broke, I think people could, well, I think they could probably figure out how to wash, maybe they couldn't wash their own clothes. But now let's do a polar opposite. Let's look at the smartphone. In my opinion, the smartphone is a piece of technology that you could say has all these advantages, but it has massive disadvantages.
Sure.
MIT, look what it's done to our society. So that's a piece of technology that has pros and cons versus a washing machine. It's like, well, it's, or like the Roomba, the self vacuuming thing. That's not really putting anybody out of a job, in my opinion. I mean, unless the hotel industry just said we're going to deploy Roombas in all our rooms and we're not going to have people vacuum rooms, then you would start putting housekeepers out of business, right? But until that time comes, I think that's a very
But I think
low level.
I think my thing is that things like that, when you start to see one and then another, it does start that trend of, hey,
Right.
which they are. They're things that allow people to have more leisure time and less. You don't have to do that chore. You don't have to do. I mean, if we can figure out, if they can come up with something that separates your clothes and washes your clothes and dries your clothes, and you never have and hangs up your clothes, and you never have to touch your clothes or dishes or things. I mean,
what I worry about with technology is when they come out with something that makes something easier, but it also over time will deplete a skill level. For example, with texting and voice texting and all that kinds of stuff, I feel like people's grammar skills and their writing skills have declined big time, right? So like if you have a device that comes out and says this does this for you, and you're like, great. Well, at some point after having 5 or 10 years of that, if that machine or whatever was to break, are you going to be able to still retain the ability to do whatever that device took from you?
Well, I
Maybe or
think
maybe
that
not.
started with spell check. Just the
Yeah.
ability to type in a misspelled
That's
word
true.
and just right click it and say fix it. I'm not even going to think. I'm not going to use any brain power to figure out how to spell that word.
I mean,
fix it.
think about when you see like historic documents, like the founding fathers. Their penmanship alone was phenomenal. I mean, like I don't think anybody that writes that beautiful nowadays, right? And these were grown men. Men typically don't have, I'm saying like, it doesn't. You're like that's beautiful handwriting, right? And they were writing with quill pens, dipping ink and stuff. And me, I'd have ink all over the paper, be a mess, right? But now it's like people can't even spell common sentences without making grammar errors.
Well, the Library of Congress, I mean, they're even putting out calls for people who can read that stuff.
Yeah.
That's how far
Really?
away, people have gotten away from that skill set to be able to read that type of penmanship. So, I mean, I don't know if you call that the slippery slope, but it's an example of skills being lost over time as you introduce different technology.
So, and going back to the actually, I want to tell you about this military thing I saw having to do with AI. But while we're on the subject right now, is we've talked about this before. So as we add to AI, AI is building on human knowledge, right? We're always feeding it, right? At some point, AI will basically surpass human knowledge. Like it'll say humans have given us everything that we possibly could probably feed it anymore. It's now kind of surpassed our intelligence level.
Well,
I think it'll get to that at some point,
I
right?
think in certain aspects, because I mean, well,
So let me ask you
Like,
this, Shawn. This
yeah.
is what we talked about before. If fast forward 20 or 30 years from now,
Mhm.
you just had it. So by the way, Shawn just had a newborn baby. You're first. So
Yes.
congrats on that. Say that on air.
Congratulations.
Oh, and what's your son's name again?
Dante.
Dante.
Yeah.
So when Dante gets to be my age,
Mhm.
or let's back up. Let's say he gets to be 25. So in 25 years from now, if we have AI programs where I can open my phone and we can do it now, but imagine in 25 years from now what's possible, right? And I can get any answer to any question regarding history. I can ask any historical question and I can get an answer, right? It can write an article, it can give me a mathematical answer and all this stuff. What would be the need for your son to go get a degree in mathematics or to get a degree in journalism? Will that be a skill? It's like, who needs that? Because we have supercomputers that can do that for us.
I mean, I think that's possible. Even when it comes to pulling up different contexts, because I think that's the skill set that historians have mostly. As much, I don't think it's really just knowing the history as much as it is putting it into context. So I think once the AI gets to that point where, and it kind of is already, where it can provide you those different kind of contextual examples or analysis.
So your son walks into a job interview and he says, "Oh, I have a degree in English literature, and I have a degree in I have a degree in mathematics or whatever his degree is, right? And people go, well, yeah, but you know what? We really don't need that because we have this supercomputer, this program that just gives us all that. So, I mean, what are we getting from you?
Well, it's kind of like people used to have degrees or training, I guess, in typing, right? Like people used to have to go to
I
learn
took a
how to
typing class
type
in
in
high school,
class.
yeah.
Like that's just you
Yeah.
don't take those classes anymore. They may teach you, home row or whatever, but they don't really teach you how to type anymore. They kind of expect you to know it. So if you go anywhere, it's like, yeah, you can type X amount of words per minute. But if you've noticed on those job requirements, the amount of words per minute that you have to be able to type to kind of set yourself apart from somebody.
Do they even ask that anymore?
Yeah.
Oh, they do?
Certain jobs. But it's gone up and up and up to the point where even I am looking at it like, my job is to sit there at a computer and type stuff up, and I can't type anywhere close to what they're requiring. So I mean, yeah.
So I just wonder what I'm getting at is I'm wondering the value of an education. I mean, I'm not saying there's no value in education, but I'm just wondering what usable skill that people have to go to a 4-year college and become a degree and all this stuff. Are they going to be able to, take that time to go to school and learn all that stuff? And what useful purpose is that going to have when we're going to have, what I'm saying? I think there's certain, and I think it'll hit certain industries first, obviously,
Right.
but I think at some point, and I think the skills so the Industrial Revolution, we talked about this before, the Industrial Revolution, basically took away blue collar jobs, right? That's the jobs they hit first. Like the assembly line we talked about earlier. When they came out with robots making cars, that hurt the blue collar auto worker, right? But the AI revolution that we're in now is going to take white collar jobs. It's going to take, attorneys, for example. I mean, imagine, look, can you go to the law library and research any cases when you can do AI, find me a case that's involving blah, blah, and it can instantly find you some reference to something versus something. I mean, imagine that.
Well, I mean, even with stocks. I mean,
and stocks,
I've heard
stockbrokers,
yeah, I've heard of that.
100%, yeah.
But here's the thing. Like you think of some of these things. Would you want to go to a robot doctor? Would you want to have some doctor that's not, but they know all the information, so they're going to take whatever your symptoms are, and they're going to come up with.
Well, they already have robots that perform surgeries, and I've read some reviews that talk about how like precise and accurate and whatever. So, I mean, as flawed as humans are, I thought that's a tough question to answer. Man. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I don't even feel comfortable. I mentioned earlier, and I think that's just. I mean, I can imagine, the turn of the century. What was those stories about, watching movies on screen? People have never seen movies and they go to a theater and they see that train coming towards them. Maybe it's apocryphal and they just ran out. I don't know.
That's crazy. Like
that aversion.
But let's think about like taking your appendix out, right?
Yeah.
That could be something where they like, okay, you have a schedule today. Oh, Mr. Dan, your scheduled appointment is 11 o'clock. You lay in a tube and you go in and this thing scans you and it has a full like X-ray vision of it. Comes in, comes down, makes a laser incision, little thing comes down, whatever like that. And then 5 minutes later, you're out and you're all like stitched up perfectly. And you're like, all right, see you later. I mean, it could be that way. And and people won't think nothing of it. It'll just be like, no big deal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I think it all goes back to what people are willing to accept.
But people are willing to accept more and more. And when something, people are shocked by something. When something new comes out, it shocks you, right?
Yeah.
But then you become used to it.
Yeah.
And then guess what? You just accept it.
Right. And
Right?
I think that's where it comes down to. I mean, I think if the success rates for these things become so undeniable where people are like, look, I mean, it's 99.5% accurate or whatever versus me going to my local doctor and it's whatever.
Like you said,
percentage.
you don't know how you feel about getting in a Waymo, like an automated taxi, right? But at some point, you're probably going to have a ride for the first time. Like, hey, man, let's take, come on. I don't know about that. No, dude, it's fine. It's fine. Get there. And once you've had that ride, you'd be like, oh, and then guess what? You might do it again. And then pretty soon, it'll be no big deal. You'll do it all the time.
No, I mean, it's like, but I do think because it's such an emerging technology, I mean, it's here. Like it's whenever you see like a plane crash, right? It makes you think about it next time you're on a plane. And I think when these technologies start to make some type of mistake in some way, shape, or form, it's going to make people think about it again.
Well, those Waymo taxis, if you put a cone, people have discovered if you put a traffic cone on the hood, it confuses them. They can't figure out what to do.
But I mean, if you
but he mentioned planes. Would you get on an airplane without a pilot?
Well, I'll tell you something. I watched a documentary. Listen, I watched a documentary about the use of AI and artificial intelligence in the military sector and law enforcement stuff. And they took these guys who were like the top guns. They took like a guy from the Navy and the Air Force. These guys were like the top gun aces, right? They were like the most highly trained, most experienced fighter pilots, right? And they put them in a simulator. And what they did is they said that they took a program, an AI program, and they in a simulator, and they tried to teach it how to fly like an F-18 in the simulator. Well, at first it was really like clunky, and it's like, okay, this is the early stages. This is like day 4 of the AI trying to learn. It was really like whatever. But they said within 6 months, the AI program could fly the F-18 equivalent to a 30-year veteran. Then they put it up against the top guns in aerial combat in the simulators, and in 10 instances, it completely toasted those guys every single time. So they interviewed the pilots. They're like, how did this AI program beat you every single time? You were a seasoned pilot. How do you think? Why do you think? Right? They said, when it makes a decision, it makes it faster, just a split second faster than I can. When it makes a certain maneuver, it makes that maneuver precise every single time. Where when I make that maneuver, it might vary slightly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest thing was in the combat scenario is it said the reason that I got beat every time by this AI program was because the AI fighter pilot would analyze all the different angles, and it would take a frontal angle to take a shot nose to nose, where a real pilot wouldn't do that because it would jeopardize its own life.
Yeah.
But the AI doesn't fear death. So it would beat the other guy because it would take a risk that a real pilot would not take, but it still didn't jeopardize. It would jeopardize the plane.
Better
But
playing chicken.
Yeah.
So it was crazy to think that because you're like, because once it learns, it's like a robot building a car and the arm moves. That arm does that thing 1,000 times every whatever, and it's precise every single time.
Right. No, I mean, I have a buddy. He works. He covers the military pretty heavily, and we always have this conversation. It's like people think that the most deadly thing on a battlefield is some jacked up guy with a massive gun on his shoulder. Some tall dude. No, really, it's the guy in the office with the glasses, figuring out how to get everything where it needs to be to make a functioning army. It's a logistics guy.
Right.
If you don't have that guy and you don't have the logistics in place to make sure that your materials or your equipment's getting to the right place, your army's kaput. So once these technologies get into spaces like that, you're
Right.
pretty much talking about it, where it's making the right decision to determine where things need to go, and you take out the mistakes that a human may potentially make.
So in this documentary that I watched, it was on Netflix, they said that all the armed forces right now are all independently working on their own battlefield management AI software that's going to benefit, and they'll network together. So the Air Force system could talk to the Navy system and say, we need 2 ships to be deployed here, we need 2 aircraft, and they can sit there and then analyze the whole scenario and then say, this is the best move to do whatever. Right. And so it's interesting because the conversation went with, right now we have drones that fly and a guy pushes a button to take someone out. So they gave a scenario. So let's use like the Bin Laden guys that went in and got Bin Laden right in the compound. So right now they have little drones. They could fly the drone up the stairs. So SEAL Team 6, they're on the first level. This is the scenario they gave. They fly the drone up the upstairs. The drone goes up there to look for any enemy combatants, and then relays that information down to the guy who's looking at the screen down on floor 1, right? He says, oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. These are all in facial recognition. It identifies all. And it tells the guy downstairs. So he downstairs, go, oh, so-and-so's behind the door. This guy's hiding in the closet. There's 3 guys. So now those SEAL Team 6, they already know who's up there, where they're hiding, whatever. So now they have an extreme advantage when they go up the stairs in order to take those guys out, right?
Yeah.
But then the conversation came. It's like, well, if the drones already identify their enemy combatants and SEAL Team needs to go up there and take them out, why not just put a gun on the drone and the drone could just take the guys out and we don't have to risk this guy's life of going up the stairs? So then what you've done is you've now, you put this certain amount of responsibility in where the drone then makes the decision. It's like you program the drone. If you identify an enemy combatant, you're authorized to go and just take that guy out, and we don't even have to have a guy push a button. That's where it goes. And so you cross a line at some point where you're no longer, and then you can then you take that on into the law enforcement, right? And you're in law enforcement, right? So they were saying, let's use this scenario. Let's say that you have drones that have some kind of ability to take somebody out with a firearm or whatever, and they hover. You had the Boston bombing, right? They've identified who it is. Let's say that they had a eyewitness and they knew who it was, and he was identified on a CCTV camera. Now they relay that image to all the drones. The drones are flying around Boston looking for this guy, and they're instructed that if they identify that guy, they're to wound him, tase him, shoot him, whatever that is, to go ahead and do that on their own. They would say, well, that makes people safer, right, Shawn? Why would we not implement that technology? But see, you're using that technology to make somebody safer, but you're also taking the human being out of it, and
Yeah.
you're letting computers and AI now dictate. So that's what I'm saying. It's an interesting topic.
Law enforcement for years has had robots that they've used to go into dangerous situations, maybe to remove a suspicious
Yeah,
package,
bomb disposal.
or they've sent robots in and they've had robots that had firearms on them that have gone into a maybe a barricaded situation and to look around or to incapacitate someone, but there's always been a human on the other end of it. And that's what you're talking about is you remove that human element out of that backside of it because the computer's smart. But there's always been that human element. So I mean they have. So it's just kind of, as progress goes, where does that lead to? And the one thing I think that humans um, will always have the key or the plug or the off button.
Maybe.
Well, and that's where, and I don't know for sure, but I think there are certain, um, uh, like there are certain agreements amongst the world.
But that's the problem though.
leaders
But that's the
that-
problem though. There's actually not, and you have people even like Elon Musk and this other gentleman, I can't remember his name, who was like one of the forefathers of AI, and he says that there is nearly not enough safeguards in place, and it's troubling that they're not paying more attention to putting those safeguards in place. Elon Musk has even said himself. This particular guy, I can't remember his name. He said that there is a 20% chance that at some point in the future, the AI will take over for humans in a way that we don't want them to. 20%. That's what he gave it. This guy is a genius who helped invent AI. He said 20%. He said that's what's scary is we're so competitive. It's like this. If China's developing AI in a certain way and we're developing it and we're going to go, you know what? We need to put the brakes on, guys, because we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We need to put safeguards in place. We're going to be like, but is China putting safeguards in place in there? No, they're not. So we're not going to put the safeguards. So it's an arms race, and nobody wants to put the brakes on because we're racing to develop the next best thing, and that's the problem.
Well, there's been certain tests and studies. One of my favorites that I've heard about is the Tetris study. Have you seen that? Or test, I guess. They had an AI play Tetris and just keep going for as long as you can go. It's AI, it's making the right decisions, but at a certain point, it's going to lose. So right before it lost, it paused the game, and it just never started playing again. And it was an idea that the people who programmed it didn't think about. Instead of losing, it just said, "We're not playing anymore."
Yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it just stopped.
That's crazy.
You
that
don't
made
lose
that.
if you pause.
Yeah. It just was like, "Hey, you told me not to lose, so I'm not going to lose."
So what I mean is, let's say that you had this battlefield technology that we talked about, right? So you implement the supercomputer that's going to look at any combat scenario and it's going to analyze the best thing to do. How do we know that program at some point doesn't become aware to a point where it says, you know what? If I've been programmed to minimize human life, whatever, again, humans are the biggest risk. So I need to take out I just feel like you get to a point where it's like a Terminator movie. And I hate sounds still like that, but it's like the computer base says to itself, in order for me to obtain this objective, I'm going to need to take control from you.
Yeah.
Sorry, but if you I'm only trying to keep you safe from yourself, right? Now, will that happen in my lifetime or your lifetime? We don't know, but I think the crazy part is that AI stuff is advancing so fast. It's just crazy fast.
I mean, what if you're in a situation where it goes, you have your server where your AI is operating and it goes, "Hey, there's a likelihood that they may pull the plug. So I'm just going to move everything that I can over here. I'm going to do some Ultron stuff. I'm surfing the web, and I'm going to move my
So to
central
use
base
your
somewhere else."
scenario, the AI determines that its people, its programmers are getting worried that it's becoming too smart. So before it loses, it hits the pause button. So it makes a decision to do something else to prevent loss. It did that on a Tetris game, but how could it not do that on a bigger level?
Right.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's like,
wow.
I think a lot of people think about the military. We've been talking a lot about the military applications, but I brought it up to you, government. What happens when people start putting AI into writing bills? What happens when it comes to, hey, an AI can determine a better schedule for picking up trash or hiring, budgetary maneuvers, things like that.
Mhm.
It's theoretically could happen. where people are using, and I don't know if those discussions have been had about how can we take advantage to streamline government um, a little bit
I think
more.
what happens is people start making decisions because they don't see the harm. What's the harm in streamlining how to pick up garbage better, right?
Right.
But then those little things lead onto big things, and at some point you get to a point where you're like, "Oh crap, what's the monster that we created now?" And then like Elon Musk was saying in an interview I saw, he's like, "You can't go back after that point."
It's like the nuclear bomb, right? No, you can't go back after you make the nuclear bomb.
Like for example, they interviewed the one guy I was telling you about. God, I wish I could remember his name, but they were saying, will we get to a point? There'll be a point where you've crossed over and we've gone too far and there's no going back. What do you think, in your opinion? What does that point look like? Where do we get that point? And he says we've already done that. We're already past it. That's what he said, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's involved in everything. I was typing up something the other day, and I mean, pretty much every word processor program has AI built inside of it. You go onto Google and you type something in, the first response that you get now is the AI prompt.
Mhm.
You can go to ChatGPT and you can say, write me a code for this, and it'll do it. It'll spit it out, how
Or what
complex
about?
it is.
Have you ever? All of us have been where you're like, dude, I was just talking about something the other day, and now I look up and there's
Yeah.
an ad for
Yeah,
it on my
yeah,
phone, and you're like, oh.
I
yeah, I can't stand when
my
that
phone
happens.
updated a couple days ago, and it went AI and all
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
Genesis or whatever they call it now.
Mhm.
And I don't have an Apple phone, so But one of the things, I took one of the pictures from our wedding, and it's my son and I stand next to each other by the pool, and you can just draw it and tell them take that out. So they
Right.
took the pool out,
Yeah.
and then it said, "Would you like to add anything?" So I just drew a red circle, kind of thing, and it put a red fire plug, a little, a fire hydrant
Hmm.
right there in that spot, right? You look at that picture and you wouldn't have known that
Right,
red fire
right.
hydrant wasn't
I
there
know.
originally.
Well,
It's just
and that's actually a big deal with magazines and stuff because there's this whole epidemic of people modifying pictures and posting
Right.
them online. It's a false picture.
Yeah.
And they do it as fun.
But-
It's like a fun joke, whatever. But it's some starts becoming very serious because you could post a picture of somebody doing something, and people think it's real and they think that person did that.
Right.
And it's
but there's benefits to things, because if you take like an old photograph of your great grandparents and it's kind of cracked,
you can
or
enhance
or
it and all that.
Right.
and you take that and you tell them to fix it or enhance it, you have a big, beautiful, looks like a
Right.
brand new picture of
Well,
them.
like we were just saying though, Dan, there's always a good thing to technology and then there's a
Right,
dark side of
right,
technology. And so you're talking about one of the good things, and the altering pictures in a negative way
Right.
is
Right.
the bad thing.
Yeah. Altering pictures, streamlining government, World War III.
Right, yeah.
Picking up trash.
Yeah.
It's better way to pick up trash. Good. Better way to run the government. I'm
But
not sure, because what does that lead to?
But if I
Right.
wanted to blackmail you, I could take a picture of you and put you into a situation
Yeah.
where I could add drugs, or I could add some,
And you'd be like, look what I saw
shady
Shawn do.
thing.
Yeah.
and
And then
then
I'm
I
like,
go,
that's a fake picture.
Shawn, you're
Right.
gonna, and
See, that's what I'm
yeah,
talking
right.
about. It's a crazy world out there. It's
Right.
a crazy. So one last thing, I'll leave you from the program I was watching. So you've seen the drones they do where the drones fly up and they're all synchronized and they make images. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
Did you
freaking
see
cool.
the New York one? Is that the one you're gonna talk about?
No, I didn't see that
They
one.
did one, or I don't know if it's true, but they did one where it looked like King Kong was climbing up the
Oh, that's cool.
top,
Really?
a skyscraper.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up
Yeah.
now.
And then they had him up there, and he was, and I
And it
mean,
was all
it was
drones?
all drones.
Oh
It
my
was
God, that
so
sounds
cool.
epic.
Now
Yeah,
again,
that's pretty
but here's
cool.
the thing: did that really happen, and somebody filmed it, or was it AI making me think that
Yeah.
somebody?
Well, it's
Because that's the other
interesting.
part of it.
You'll go on social media now and you'll see a picture and it'll be, kind of an odd picture, but the first question that you typically see now is, was this AI? Is
Right.
this AI? Like, people are
Oh,
confused
no.
now.
Yeah.
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 I like the AI thing. I keep getting these shows. It takes actors or famous people and it makes them look like babies. And they
Yeah.
talk whatever.
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually like those. Are pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to the drone thing. So you've seen these drones that can make these formations, right? They can make the American flag waving and all that stuff.
Fireworks.
Yeah. They're saying, so now, again, the show I saw where they were teaching AI to fly in F-18s. I mean, this is a show. Whatever they show you on TV, they've already done. You're like probably 2-3 years behind what they're doing behind closed doors.
Mhm.
So they can fly F-18s with AI right now. So they even said that they can fly aircraft with it. So they're saying, now imagine, instead of 1,000 drones that are all synchronized and making this image, that you now have 1,000 F-18s that are all being flown by AI and they're all communicating and flying in exact sync. And imagine sending those into a country. Imagine the scary part of that. And see, and if you could do that, imagine the immense advantage you would have over another country, right? So who's going to not do that? Why would the US not want that technology? Because we want to have the most military, or China. So that's where it's saying we're going to race ourselves until we become just like the Cold War, where, well, I'm going to have 1,000 nukes. Well, I'm going to have 2,000 nukes. Well, I'm going to have 5,000 nukes. Pretty soon, you're going to get AI to a point where we're going to be all, whoa, we need to all stop using AI, just like we stopped using nuclear bombs, because are we going to get to that point where we're just like, hey, all AI is now going to be banned, just like nuclear weapons are banned, because it's taboo?
I think so. I mean, I would hope so. I would hope that we got to that point where we realize that we're getting to the point where this is getting dangerous, very dangerous.
But we have the people that are mainly the inventors of this stuff, people like Elon Musk and others, who are already signaling that it's bad. But the funny thing, they say that, but then also they're also, their companies are developing it at the same time. So it's almost hypocrisy, really.
Yeah.
I think the snowball's rolling downhill, and I don't think you're going to stop it.
No,
I think it's already done.
No, I
Until
mean,
it crushes
they're-
us all.
I mean, they're trying to automate out the umpires in baseball.
Right.
You know, they don't want umpires behind the plate
Really?
anymore. Yeah,
Well,
they want to do
how long do you think before your occupation? I mean, you're going to retire, so who cares? But how long do you think it'll be before they just don't want as staff in the jails anymore, and they can just automate it with like all the door closures and the people being released to this whatever can all be done automated? You don't think they could do it?
I don't think they could do it,
Why not?
only because there will always be a motive the inmates are always looking for an opportunity. They're always looking for an opportunity with us. I'm not saying they won't install things that will make the job different, but I think that you have to have human eyes on a person.
I think the reason they're not doing wages and all that kinds of stuff,
Oh.
and the risk of, I think at that point they're just going to say, you know what, when the technology becomes cheap enough, they're going to implement whatever it is, and it'll
They'll
happen.
make changes. They'll make changes, and you'll see reduction in staff. But I still think you have to still have human eyes on it. And I know, maybe not, but
So maybe the human eyes is that you have 4 corrections officers show up instead of 10, and they just sit in a control room and they run the whole AI program. They're just sitting there with eyes on, but everything is controlled, and they're never even in the same room
That's
or face to
possible.
face with
That's
the
possible.
inmates. You could totally
That's
imagine
possible.
that, right?
Yeah, no, that's possible. There are some jails already that don't have officers out with inmates.
that are not totally. There's no interaction.
But if there's a fight, staff has to respond to a fight. If there's certain things that, I mean, so that you still have certain things that you have to. How do you go break up a fight? How does a robot go break up a fight?
Well, I'll answer that question. I saw this thing. I forget where I saw it, but they were saying that basically, if there was a fight that broke out in the yard, that they have this basically like out gas, and they just gas the room, and everybody's just unconscious.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what the problem is with that.
Attorneys.
Those 2 guys are fighting. How come these 3 guys that are in the room are getting
Well, like
the
I
same
said,
punishment?
attorneys, because there's rights and stuff, and that's why you can't whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm
Well-
just telling you, you get to a point though where
But I
there's
can tell
always
you,
a way.
But I can tell you, I mean, I've been a correctional officer almost 29 years. When I started doing things, we had ink prints, right? We haven't had ink prints for 20 years or more.
Hmm.
We have a computer
Yeah,
prints now,
scans it.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. You have the inmates have tablets now. Tablets. We give inmates tablets, and almost every jail in California gives inmates tablets, and they can text on the tablets to their loved ones. They can do video calls on the tablets. California, you're seeing more technology come. And so, yeah, eventually at some point they're going to figure out ways but there's still certain aspects of it that I still think.
So
I just don't see how you can have.
you don't think that they could do a thing where so you already have ankle bracelets for people that are on house arrest or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, right? So you just go one step further and you just have a little thing that's just implanted in you, right? So let's just say that everybody that goes to prison for, let's say that you're in prison, not like county jail, it's like something where you're going to do some time, right? They implant you with this little device. With this device, they could track you. They know where you're at. You could never escape because whatever. And with that device, if you were to get out of line or get in a fight or whatever, they could do something and basically could just render you unconscious. You don't think that's far fetched?
I'm not saying they can't do it, but I'm going to tell you that as long as there's a U.S. Supreme Court, that you're never going to be able to implant something into somebody's body to monitor them, track them, anything like that.
Well, at some point, you have things come along, like, for example, the Patriot Act, where a piece of legislation comes along and takes rights away from you in order to keep you safer. And all it takes is legislation and the stroke of a pen to start taking those rights in the spirit of safety. And if they can say, well, our jails have been more safer if we can just do that. And all it takes is a couple of politicians to lobby for that. And there you go.
Inmates have more rights than the officers
Yeah.
working in the jails.
No, I agree with you. They do.
Do you think
Yeah.
you would ever get to a point where technology or AI is involved in any early release decisions?
Whoa. It could be. If I think what it would do is I think you'd see AI start to analyze
Like risk
how many write-ups has
assessments?
this person
Yeah.
had while they've been in custody, how many rule violations have they
Or
had,
maybe they-
what's their tendency
Or maybe
to
maybe they
violate.
have a psychology AI program, right? That they do an interview with the inmate and they ask him a series of questions and it can analyze heart rate, pupil dilation, whatever, almost like a lie detector, right?
Blade
and
Runner.
it could give you a percentage of based on this person's answers and the way they answered and blah blah blah. That we think there's a 75% chance that this person will not reoffend if we release them. I can totally see them having something.
But
like
what you
that.
don't realize is jails are full of innocent people. Everybody, if you ask anybody in jail, they're
all
innocent.
innocent.
So
Um,
your AI is false. It's a false
something
reading.
I think would be really interesting to see implemented a little bit further is this is just me with my things that I enjoy, video games. Is when you can put AI in a video game and instead of having to type up a script for whatever characters are within your game and how they would respond typically, they start responding a little bit more off the cuff. And so each playthrough is a little bit different. Each whatever you're doing is a little bit different, but it's responding a little bit more to the stimulus you're putting in versus to whatever the programmer put
Have you
in,
seen
so to
these
speak.
articles? I wish I could remember where I read it, where it talked about. You've seen that movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah.
That's a deep movie if you
Yeah.
think about that, right? So there was a situation where this it was an adolescent befriended some AI programmer or something like that, and it was like they become so infatuated with them. And it's a real thing with some youth and I forget where I read this, and something
I've
happened,
heard
and the
of
kid ended up, trying to harm themselves or whatever. But that movie's probably like that movie's probably 5-10 years old now or something.
Oh
Maybe
no, it's
10
older
years
than that.
older
I
than that,
think,
right? But that movie is deep,
Mm.
man. In the age of online dating and whatever, and you have an AI. I mean,
Well,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Going back to Shawn talking about video games though, and I'm sure somebody already has done this, but there's online casinos.
Mm.
How do online casinos battle somebody using AI to gamble on their online casino?
The metaverse.
Yeah, making decisions
But
about
just think
whether or
about
not.
that. Think
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that. I mean,
Hey,
if
our
they-
friend Matt will tell you all about the metaverse.
what is he involved in that?
Oh yeah, he knows all about. No, serious. He's like, dude, you'll literally be a point where there'll be like a virtual city, right? And as a person, you can actually open a virtual casino in the metaverse, and that casino can operate as a real casino, and other people like this could go in the metaverse and gamble, and there's a real profit involved and real money and all that. And I was just like, it's mind blowing. But he was telling us all about it, and I was like, what are you talking about?
But on blackjack in a casino, there's card counting, right? If they're suspected card counting, they tell you can't
Yeah.
play there, they get rid of you, right?
Yeah,
So, but think about it. If you're doing online gambling and you're playing blackjack, you're making that decision. Okay, I got a 13. Do I hit? Do I stay? What you're doing all this stuff. But if you use an IA program, that IA program is going to be 100%
Yeah,
right
yeah.
in every decision it makes to make the most money.
well, it's gonna
So-
make percentage decisions. It's gonna analyze the percentage and say you should take a hit there. High probability that you should take a hit. It's not gonna be right every time, but it's gonna analyze the percentage and use
But it'll
math.
be based on how many cards have already been out, what the cards are, what the.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be
Same thing with poker. I
Right.
mean, it's just like really good poker players that are very math prone. They're going to be good at poker because they can analyze and say, in order to hit my flush, here's the percentage. I have a some percent of hitting my flush if I do this, that. They analyze how many chips are in the pot. Should I call that bet based on the 4-to-1 odds, so on and so forth. And they analyze that. And people that are smart with math can do all that on
Oh.
the fly. And it's not, they're not like bluffing people. It's not like the old timer poker guys. They're literally just using
But when you-
mathematics.
Right.
when you hear about these teams of people who go to Vegas or right, most of them are from MIT, right? So they're already highly intelligent people.
Yeah,
They
they know
get
the
a
math
group and they
behind
go
it.
and they take Vegas for millions and millions of dollars. So
That true
apply
story
that-
about that
apply
MIT.
that,
when
these
they went
MIT
to
people,
Vegas and did the
yeah,
blackjack.
apply
stuff. It's a real
that
thing.
to an online AI program,
It's
which
the
I guarantee you, people have already done it.
Oh yeah. Well, the people are doing it. They just haven't got caught yet. So when they caught, that's when we hear about it.
But is it really cheating? If it's online, I don't know. Where's the ethics
Well, you've
behind
heard
it? Where's
not to go off the subject too much, but have you heard about that big to do about the World Series of Poker and stuff in the tournament where they were using
Oh,
I
yeah.
forget the name of the program, but they would basically get up from the table and they go over and they would run their scenarios through this certain program and they go down and there was like, no, that's
Yeah,
cheating. And
right.
so there's a big to do about it, like banning it and all kinds of stuff. And I 100% think that's cheating.
Right.
I don't even think that person should be able to get up from the table and go over there and talk to somebody on the rail and be like, hey, what do you think I should do this, whatever, and have a coach be like, I think you should play. I mean, I don't think you should be able to do that.
You know, if we get rid of umpires in baseball, how long before you end up getting rid of the players? How long before you watch a game on TV or you watch a game on your TV or your computer and it's 100% AI?
Well, nah, I don't know about that. I think athletics is a kind of a unique. I think we're along. I think there's going to be technology enhancements that enhance athletics and stuff like that to make the humans better. But I think it's a competitive nature of us to be. I'm better than you are. I can run faster than whatever. If you put computers in, and it's just like, I mean, would it be fun to go to an IndyCar race and all the cars are just unmanned and the cars just race on track? That wouldn't even be fun to watch.
Right.
It wouldn't.
No.
So I don't think that's coming.
Well, they already have drone races, but there's somebody behind
really?
it. Yeah, they're controlling it though. You know, they'll run
still
the
the
yeah,
person
they're still
behind.
you know, but when it comes to baseball, I mean, that slow creep of technology and really analytics. I mean, the increase of analytics they had to pull back literally. I was just actually reading an article about it, about the fight against athletic, where it's kind of difficult to implement, but the analytics in basketball, I mean, threes. There's a reason for that because they've analyzed it. They've used their tech, their AI to figure out that that's the most efficient shot and it's the best shot that could potentially
the
get you a
Dodgers
win.
are the best team in baseball. I mean, by far, and they're the world champions. They're the best team. But Dave Roberts, you know, the man.
I actually agree
they
with
won
that.
the National League
If you
West.
mention the Dodgers again, I will kill your microphone.
But they won the National League West for years and years and years, right? But they haven't won as many World Series. But a lot of the critique has been that Dave Roberts relies too much on the analytics of it instead of just that gut feeling.
It's like that. It's like that movie Moneyball with Brad Pitt.
You take a manager like Joe Torre, he had that gut feeling on a lot of his stuff.
Right.
You know, he knew when it was time to replace that pitcher.
Well, there's always that human element for anything.
Well, at the end of the day, somebody has to throw the ball.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's that push against, you know, the math versus the athletics.
Right.
And as AI gets more involved in that, you know, how do you balance that?
I mean, you watch a game and they'll show you before the ump even calls whether it's strike or ball. It'll show you on the screen basically whether it hit the corner, whether it didn't hit the corner, whether it and as everything advances, that's going to continue to get more and more precise.
Well, it's really funny talking to people who's never watched a baseball game without that thing there. I mean, my fiance is one of them. You know, she'll tell me, it's like, how do they know without the box?
Yeah,
Well, there's rules. There's actual rules.
I could see like refs being like in football, because even you watch football on TV, they already show you with it, whatever, and they do instant replay and all that. Right. So if they're already using all that stuff, then what the hell is the ref there for to do? Like, I mean, if you can have a program analyze the play and it can zero and go, oh, that guy was holding, or that guy was, you know, whatever like that, and it can automatically throw a thing that says there was a flag, and then it says, you know, this little screen pops up and it's like flag Patriots number something for holding, and the computer saw that and said, what do you need a ref for?
Well, you talk about the
you might be heading that way.
No,
well, I believe it.
You know, the chain gang, the guys that walk with the chains,
you
know, they're gone now. They're using.
I heard that.
Yeah, they're using scanners inside the ball to
really
dictate whether or not
the first they
no
reach the
kidding
first down, and because it's more precise.
Oh my gosh!
Wow,
you know,
that's another job that we've lost. Thanks AI.
No more chain gang. Damn it! I wanted to do that too. But Dan was going to be a chain. He was going to be a chain guy in his retirement.
But the chain gang for the Galt High Warriors with you know, City Councilman Matt Pratton's been on for 30-something years. Yeah, they're still around. They're still around, and they're still doing a great job. So give a shout out to them too.
Yeah. Oh, Killen just said, congratulations, we just hit 200 subscribers.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I want to say thanks to our 200 subscriber, whoever you were.
Yeah. Now let's get some financial sponsors.
Yeah.
And I can really.
Well, speaking of that, we're getting ready to wrap up, so we should segue out with this. So we are looking for. So we always joke around about for profit, whatever. We're actually not looking for profit per se for ourselves, but we are looking to set up in a permanent studio. So we're looking at renting a room from the Chamber of Commerce office for a permanent studio, so we can advance our show. We want to move to a once a week show, and we have the ideas about how to make the show better, but we need to start with the studio. So we are looking for sponsors, and we have some people that have offered to be sponsors, very low level stuff, just to cover the rent and the expenses on that, which is very inexpensive. So if you are interested, you're watching, you know somebody, and reach out to us. I can give you some, and it's very inexpensive. And we would basically, for some people ask, well, what would you do for a sponsor? Well, for some of the low level stuff, we would put your logo on our backdrop. We would actually mention you as a sponsor, and depending on the level of sponsorship, we would actually give you a plug about what you do. And, you know, if you're a realtor or you're an insurance agent or you're a restaurant or something, we want to stick to local businesses, obviously, but if you are interested, we would welcome the support to enhance the show and make the show better. So
And,
reach out to us.
and the advertising would actually break down because we'll start doing a show every week. But the advertising would actually break down to less than it would cost to advertise in the local newspaper.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So not to take business away from this,
Nah.
but anyways, yeah. So so if you're interested in helping us out, you can shoot us an email, greatamericanlittletown@gmail.com, or you can message me, and it could give you some more information about it, and you can see if you're interested. So we'll be reaching out to some of those people that have offered and getting it going. So I'm optimistic we'll have something going hopefully within the next maybe 30 days or so. It'll be a big deal. But thank you to our subscribers,
200
though.
subscribers. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And still like, share, get everybody else. Let's get to 250. Let's get to 300.
And
let's keep
if
going.
you're watching the show tonight, we're looking for feedback on topics. Shoot us an email saying, hey, you guys should talk about something, or just anything. I mean, we're open-minded to, and if you know a good guest we should have, there's someone locally or that you think should be a good guest on the show, let us know who that is. We'll reach out to them. Or if you yourself want to be a guest on the show and you have something to bring to the table to discuss, reach out to us and see, that's something we'd be interested in doing because, we're open-minded and we just, we want to make our town better and bring, try to use this show to promote things locally, promote businesses, promote events, talk about things going on in town, all those things. So anyways, yeah.
I want to talk about one real quick thing. So
all right,
today,
last thing we got to wrap up.
Today I helped somebody that was getting rid of some stuff from their family and stuff. And they gave me this shirt and it was the Galt Hustlers Incorporated. It's an embroidered shirt on the back. Never seen it before, never heard about it
was a
before.
car club.
And it was a car club. I didn't know if it was from the 60s, 70s, 80s. I didn't know if it was a bowling club. I didn't know what
That's
it was.
pretty cool.
Or bowling team. But it was a car club from the early 60s. And I discovered it because I went on newspapers.com and did some searching and was able to find some old Galt Herald newspaper articles talking about it. But my thing is, and I've said this before, if anybody out there watching knows somebody who's maybe your parents have passed and you need to get rid of their stuff,
whatever.
grandparents have passed, you're cleaning out the states, things like that, call Shawn, call me, reach out to us first, reach out to somebody like us first. Don't just start throwing and
Yeah, don't start throwing stuff away. Because
Reach
some
out to
stuff
us
you might
first.
not think is anything good to you, but it's important to other people.
I mean, there's things that
especially stuff historical to Galt. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be substantial. It could be something you think it's like, well, this is from
are
Galt, but it's not.
how many
even
license
that.
plate frames do you have from some of the old car
Yeah.
dealerships that
Almost
say
all of
Galt
them except
or
one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and those are the things we're looking for. Old bowling shirts. If it says Galt on it, I just picked up an old Letterman sweater last week, right from '83. I mean, I like stuff like that. You like stuff like that, but more importantly, it's a lot of that stuff, especially papers, pictures, photos, anything like that. It's history of Galt. Reach out to us. Don't just throw it away. Reach out to us. Let us come see it first. We might tell you. We'll be honest with you. We might say, yeah, there's no value here. There is value here. There's historical value. And a lot of times we also work in partnership with the Historical Society. So if there's something that we might get a hold of that they're interested in, we might give it to them. They'll
Yeah.
either keep it or they'll even scan it. So if anybody's watching, you come across something like that,
Yeah.
think about us.
All right. So our next show is going to be on June 4th. We won't be here next week. We'll go back to our every other week schedule for the time being. So next show will be June 4th. We have not determined our guest or what that will be about yet. But I just want to say again, thank you to everybody for watching. We really appreciate. Thank you, Shawn, for joining
Thanks
us
for being
again. It's
here.
always a
Yeah.
good time having you on here. We'll
Appreciate
definitely
you.
have you back again on a
This is
future
going to be a
episode.
regular. I think this is going to
Yeah,
John
we
is
like.
going to be regular.
Yeah, we like having you. We like the dialogue that we have, and so maybe you can take Jen's job at some point. I'm joking.
me?
I'm joking.
Hey,
I'm joking.
you don't pay me. I'll quit today.
Yeah, I know the show won't be the same without you, Dan. I've created a monster. See, I brought Dan on. Now he's like taking over.
Hey, your viewership goes up every show I'm on. I just want you to know that. We got 200 subscribers today, and I'm back. So I just want you to know.
Yeah.
I'm going to take credit.
Hey,
for
but
that
check out
one.
our past episodes. So we have a lot of episodes, past episodes. We've added the thumbnails to our episodes so you can see which of our guests are. Go back and check out past episodes. Listen to them. You can turn them on when you're doing something. Just listen to them. You don't have to watch them. But there's some really good. We've had some really good guests and some really interesting stuff. So just cruise through them. Maybe sample a couple minutes
Maybe
of each
if you're
one.
driving somewhere, play it through your car audio. Hold it up on YouTube on your phone, play it through car audio. That's what I've done before.
You can mute Dan when Dan talks. You can mute him, and then you can come back.
Turn me up, turn Shawn down.
All right. Well, that's going to conclude our show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you all in 2 weeks. from those of us here.
Happy
at the Great
Memorial Day. Happy
That's right. Yeah,
Memorial Day.
that's right. Memorial Day.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. Thank you for
Hey,
mentioning
yeah,
it, Dan.
yeah. We can't leave without
So look,
that.
a plug to our veterans who have, well, not veterans, but are people who have made the ultimate sacrifice.
Yep.
Memorial Day is
Yep.
about honoring the people who have given their life in the service
Yep.
of duty.
I have family members that have.
So as you celebrate this
Yep.
weekend, whether it's a barbecue or you're going camping or you're going on vacation or whatever you're doing,
remember what
please
it's for.
remember that why we celebrate Memorial Day and that you need to honor those people that gave that in order for us to have the freedoms that we have. So important. So please remember those.
Before we go, is there going to be a Memorial Day service?
Yeah, at the cemetery. I don't know what time it starts, so I have to
If
look.
I remember correctly, it's 10 a.m.
10 a.m. at
If
the
I
at the
remember
Galt
correctly,
Cemetery
please double
on
check
Monday?
that.
on Monday. On
On
Memorial
Monday,
Day. Yeah.
So
So
throw
go check
that
it
out
out. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night, and we will see you next time.